Welcome to All Creatives Now, a brand new one-stop creativity spot where you can find all the information and resources you need to unleash your creative potential.
Looking at the growth in the creator economy and facilitating conversations amongst creatives about what it is to be a creator in the modern world.
Join me, Paul Stevenson,
And me, Kev Harrison,
as we interview creatives from a range of disciplines about their journeys, their passions, their struggles, and what it means to them to be a creative in the modern world. There has quite literally never been a better time to be a creative.
Get your work out there into the world.
Hi, and welcome to All Creatives Now. This is the second episode of the podcast about creativity, with interviews with creatives about creativity. So I'm here as always with Kev, and today we've got a fantastic interview lined up for you. We'll get to that in just a minute. But Kev, how are you doing?
I'm doing all right, thanks. Yeah. In my household at the moment, we have a COVID patient. So I am not the COVID patient. So I'm isolating in half of the house. It's kind of like that Michael Douglas film, The War of the Roses, where they like divide the house into, but with less attempts to murder each other. So yeah, but apart from that, all is well. What about you, man?
Well, I'm just wondering now if that makes me Danny DeVito, which is a role.
A good thing, surely.
It's a role I'm willing to take on if necessary, if required. So
Absolutely.
yeah, no, I'm good. I've keen and eagle-eyed observers may notice that my beard's gone. It's still there, but it's gone, and I'm very, very sad about it.
Why have you shorn the face fluff?
I am going for job interviews, and job interviews require for you not to look like a dirty hippie. So,
So sad.
it's not going entirely, because if I completely get rid of it, then I do look a little bit like a malformed potato. So I need the hair there a little bit, because it adds definition to my face. So,
Very good.
so yeah. Obviously, if you're listening to this on the podcast, you've got absolutely no idea what I look like, and for your own sort of mental health, you should probably keep it that way. So, yeah. But yeah. So today we've got an interview with a very, very talented singer, Djamila Boden Azzous from the band Ithaca.
Yes.
I'm not going to lie, I love this band quite a lot, and I try to keep that in check during my interview. I'm not entirely sure I was successful all the time, but there you go. Yeah, she's fantastic. Ithaca are a fantastic band if you're into the kind of the hardcore side of things. If you're into really, really kind of noisy sort of metal stuff, there's not many people doing it better than them. And their new album, which we've only heard a couple of tracks of, but it's going to be amazing, I think. So so looking forward to that.
I mean, certainly the single and the video to go with the single is really something pretty amazing. I've got to be honest. I was pretty blown away by it when you sent it to me. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's very, very good, and and I'm very much looking forward to seeing them in about 50 days from now, because I'm going to be going to see them at 2000 Trees. So I'm very much looking forward to that.
Love it.
But in the meantime, we had quite a good chat with her. Yeah, so we covered off some good topics.
This conversation was so interesting, wasn't it? There was so much stuff that came out, starting off with her experience of being in education related to her creative pursuit, and how that didn't really work out. I mean, I thought that was a really interesting take, and there's a lot there for us to take out of it, and for other creatives to take out of it for the future, I suppose.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think so many people want to go down that route of like, okay, well, I'm going to be a singer, I have to go and get like the proper vocal training, and I'm actually going through this a bit at the moment, because I'm doing a creative writing course at the moment, which I'm just coming to the end of, and yeah, it's been really useful for me. But
that has worked for you, hasn't it? Yeah.
I think so, yeah. But I'm not sure how much of it working is kind of just the social element of it, and the
like the extra motivation.
The extra motivation, and having other writers around, but also I think when you're pitching in amongst other people, and your stuff's holding up, it's quite that's a bit of a nice sort of
gives you a boost kind of thing.
It's kind of, we all, I think, as creatives suffer from this sort of the
imposter syndrome.
That's the words I was looking for. And it's nice to get that kind of a bit of validation. It does kind of help you kind of steer away from that. But again, it's not going to work for everyone, and I think Djamila's story on that is really interesting.
I think so, yeah, and I think that's such an important thing to consider, isn't it? With any advice, I mean, we're doing this to try and get advice for ourselves, but also for our listeners, obviously. But I mean, that mantra of your mileage may vary is going to be like a constant throughout everything we do. I think because something that works for Djamila, say, or doesn't work for Djamila, might well work for me, and vice versa. Might well work for one of our listeners, two of our listeners, 1,000 of our listeners, or none. I mean, we just don't know. So.
Yeah.
It's about trying out things that you're given advice about and seeing how it works for you.
Yeah,
What
and
else
I
did you
think
take out of this conversation? Sorry.
yeah, I mean, just before we move on from that, I think what might be interesting if you're a creative and you're on one of these sort of courses and you're sitting there thinking, I'm not getting as much out of this as I should be. If I'm not, this isn't helping me. Does that mean I'm a bad creative? Does this mean I'm not cut out for this? It doesn't mean that at all. And I think Jamila's kind of proof of that. Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely.
In terms of what else, I mean, there's a lot of we go into quite a lot of detail about Ithaca's experience through the pandemic, and spoiler alerts, they were on the tour that was supposed to break them, and it quite literally did break them, but not in the way that they might have expected. So yeah, that's a really interesting story, and kind of how to deal with adversity, and they went through things that I think quite sensibly would break up most bands. And the fact that it didn't and made them kind of stronger and brought them back to a place where they're now releasing such good stuff. It's really interesting.
And I think as well, like the resilience that gave them for the way things are being organized now within like their writing schedule and within their practice schedule and stuff. I think that was really interesting to me because I mean, part of the reason we're doing this, part of the reason we're able to do this show is that, we've got all this tech and stuff that allows us to do things at distance. And, to hear that they are operating as a band now at distance. I mean, we'll hear obviously much more about that in the conversation, but yeah, it's very, it's very encouraging and inspiring, I think, for people who do have that distance barrier to be able to do, whatever they want, bands, podcasts, whatever.
Absolutely. And also, since this is one of our early recordings, you get to hear me having fun with the mute button. And if you are watching on the video, you'll get to meet the Ithaca band mascot, the most wonderful Ham. So stay tuned for that towards the end. And I think we should stop spoiling the episode now. I think maybe we should just crack on into it. So
I mean, also, no one wants to listen to us, really, do they? I mean, they've done that already.
Absolutely.
So let's listen to someone who knows what they're talking about.
Welcome to this episode of All Creatives Now. We are very, very blessed to be joined today by the extremely talented lead singer of the wonderful band Ithaca, Djamila Boden Azzous. So thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me on the podcast. I'm really excited.
Excellent, very good. So
we're really excited to speak to you. Yes.
Yeah. So I have to say before we get started that very, very big fans of yours. Loved Language of Injury, but really, really, really impressed by the newest songs. But before we get into all that, could you maybe just give us a little bit of background about yourself, your road into being a creative, and the bit of the background about the band as well, please?
Yeah. Oh wow. Okay. In terms of being a creative, I've kind of always done music and sort of acting and stuff like that. I went to university to do musical theatre. I ended up dropping out and didn't get a degree because I hated it. Really, really did not have a good time there. And when I was kind of in my late teens, I'd always been into music and always knew that I wanted to do music, I guess. But I never really thought that I could actually do it. So I did what a lot of young people do and ended up sort of going into education and higher education, thinking that would kind of be my route into it. And it didn't quite work out. So I ended up moving back home and trying to do the music thing and joining Ithaca. I think I was like 20 maybe when we started it, and now I'm 31. So,
gosh,
it's yeah, it's been a while.
Time flies, right?
I can't hear you, and I don't know what's happened.
Paul, you've gone quiet.
That's what happens, interestingly enough, when you mute yourself because you're going to take a drink of water. It's just
No, you
unbelievable.
don't unmute yourself.
Unbelievable levels of professionalism here.
Love this.
Absolutely. I was just going to say, an 11-year overnight success story, as these overnight success stories, generally tend to be. But so were the band already started before you joined, or?
Kind of, but not really. So Sam, Lewis, and Will all went to school together, so they'd known each other since they were kids. And I think they'd always done that thing of like, we're going to start a band, and just the same thing I did, just sort of bumming around the music room at school and, badly playing Metallica songs, like just being like, yeah, let's do this. And I think at that time when I joined them, they'd decided, okay, let's actually try and do this band thing. We've been messing around for years, and why don't we actually try and do it? So I joined, and then our first bass player Drew joined the band at the same time, or around the same time. And I think that's sort of officially when the band started.
Right.
And then obviously years and years of gigging and playing around. I'm guessing the sort of the hardcore scene around the UK, which is a pretty, having been in a very, very small minor hardcore band for all of about 6 minutes. I know it's a pretty grueling scene, and lots of time in the van and stinky vans and all that sort of stuff. So you managed to sort of persevere through, and then your first album came out on Holy Roar originally. And you guys sort of blew up quite a bit initially off that first album.
Yeah, we did. Yeah. So we released initially a couple of demos online, and then we released an EP. And then The Language of Injury happened, which was our first full length. And yeah, really sort of surprisingly, a lot of people seemed to like it. And yeah, people kind of started taking notice. And for us, we'd been, even when that first album was released, we'd been playing together for a really long time as well. So even back then, we weren't a new band. Not for us anyway, we were for everyone else. And we were just one of those bands that, like, we just got hit with loads of bad luck when we were trying to release that first album. So that took way longer than it was supposed to anyway. And then sort of after that album, we started writing again, and then the pandemic happened. So yeah, now we're here.
You were on tour. You had quite an unusual support act slot at the time, didn't you? You were opening for who? Sorry, I'm trying to remember now who it was that you were opening for, but you were on tour when it all sort of kicked off, weren't you?
Yeah, so we were on tour with a band called Big Thief, who are this amazing sort of like folk indie band. Absolutely nothing like us. And that whole thing feels like one big fever dream now.
Oh my God.
They're amazing. They're the nicest people I've ever met in my life. And initially, they reached out to us via Instagram and said, "Oh, hey, like, we're really big fans of you guys. We're playing in London. Do you want to come?" And I lost my mind. Like, I lost my mind. I was like, how do these people, like, at the time they were like one of Obama's favorite bands or something, and I was like, how do these people know who we are? And I couldn't go to the show, and I was really gutted about it, but I just messaged them back and was like freaking out and was like, oh my God, like, I'm so sorry I can't come to the show, but like, if you're back, let's hang out or whatever. And not long after that, they messaged back and said, do you want to do a tour? And I, of course, said yes, not thinking anything of it. And I just thought that they were being nice. Because, when you're in a band, like, even when you're in a very small band, you say that to people all the time, like, or, people you meet, or
let's
other
get
bands
together sometime.
Yeah, let's do something. And it never really happens. And then maybe like a month later, our agent emailed us and was like, do you know anything about this? Because I've just got an entire tour offer through from this band, Big Thief. And it was for the whole, month-long UK and European tour.
Bloody hell.
And I never thought that it would happen. So, of course, we just thought, of course, we're going to do this. We'd be absolutely idiotic to say no to this. There's no way, you know. And a couple of months later, we were playing to 6,000 people at Hammersmith Apollo, to
Holy shit.
a
Oh my
whole
God.
bunch of people who had no fucking idea what they were in for. And every night we played these huge venues to all of these people who were like, had come to see a nice folk band. And, you know, like, to be fair, there were people who were coming to the shows to see us as well, which was
Sure,
really,
sure.
really nice. But that was surprising for us. We were like, whoa, okay. But obviously the majority of people were there to see Big Thief, not us. And there's this really incredible photograph somewhere that our photographer took of, like, I think it was a show we played in France. I can't remember what venue it was, but he took the photo from behind the stage when we were playing, and the entire couple of front rows, everyone's got their fingers in their ears. Like, no one is enjoying it. Like,
that's amazing.
all of these people are at the front of the front of the barrier, like, I'm staying here to be at the front for Big Thief, but I'm not happy about it. Like, it was just incredible. But it was like, yeah, just the best thing we've ever done. It was incredible. And then kind of during that tour, COVID-19 was sort of happening, but none of us quite knew how bad it was going to be, and it hadn't really properly sort of kicked off then. So of course
this was like the tail end of 2019, is that right?
No, this was 2020.
The beginning of 2020, so
yeah,
right before it happened. Oh,
February 2020.
Okay.
So we were halfway through the tour. I think we'd done like 15 or 16 dates at that point. And we were in Germany, and the tour manager said to us, you know, we were going to Copenhagen the next day. They've banned gatherings of over 1,000 people. So, well, really, really cleverly, they said, okay, well, we're just going to split this show into two shows. We're going to do a matinee and an evening show, which was fine. So we did the matinee show at like 5 p.m. or something. And sort of in between the matinee show and the evening show, they came in and they were just like, we're done. Like, we have to go home. Like, it's over.
Oh my God.
And we were we all of us, like Big Thief, we just stood in the dressing room and just cried. Like, I bawled my eyes out. And then we all got COVID.
Oh no!
Jesus. Talk about kicking you when you're down. My God.
Yeah, because we didn't know how bad it was, but we were in these huge venues every night, around thousands of people playing these shows. And that we had to drive back. We had to drive from Copenhagen back to London in the bus, in the van. And those 2 days were two of the worst days of my life. It was like a van full of rotting corpses. It was disgusting. Like, it was just bodies. Like, it was horrific. We were all so ill. Like, yeah, man, that was rough. It was so rough.
And then followed up by basically losing, sort of all your touring income for the best part of 2 years. So so how was your pandemic?
My pandemic was, God, I don't know. It feels like a whole lifetime ago, doesn't it? Like, I think back to the start of the pandemic, and I feel like I was a completely different person then. My pandemic, like, I feel like everyone looks back on the first lockdown, at least in the UK, with sort of rose-tinted glasses. I do. I had a great time. Like, I was like having a lovely time. It was like the height of summer. Obviously, all of this bad stuff was happening, and it was really awful. But I think at that point, I was still sort of living in my own bubble a little bit, trying to stay safe, obviously, not going out, not seeing anyone. And again, like, all of the really bad stuff hadn't happened yet, and we didn't really know how bad it was going to get. So I just spent all of that first lockdown just sat in my garden in a paddling pool, just smashing beers, just having a great time, not going to work because I was furloughed.
Oh my God.
So yeah, like
from the perspective of like the music, like the band, I mean, how did you manage to keep things going like during that? Was that possible? Like, did you have online stuff or?
Yeah, it was really hard. Like, I struggled quite a lot because I love my bandmates and I love
Yeah.
being around them. And we'd just gone from doing this amazing tour and
Like
being,
living in each other's pockets. Yeah.
mm, yeah, and just like playing these amazing shows every night to like being really sick and being like, right, go home quickly, go now, go. Don't leave the house,
And
don't leave the house.
stay there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like don't see anyone, don't talk to anyone. Like,
Oh my God.
so I found that really hard to deal with. And of course,
Mm.
not being able to see friends and family and stuff. But in terms of the whole band thing, yeah, we kind of just had to take it as it sort of happened.
Yeah.
And we had already started writing the new album. So we were like, how are we going to do this? How are we going to
Mm.
make this work? So yeah, it was a lot of online stuff, a lot of kind of writing stuff and recording it in our bedrooms and sending it to each other.
Oh
And
my God, bonkers.
yeah, like Sam was like recording riffs on his computer and sending them over to us, and then Lewis was like recording drums on his computer and being like,
Oh
"Oh,
my
maybe
God.
this will work," and sending it over. And then I was like writing vocal parts, and yeah, it was intense. We kind of got lucky because there were a couple of sort of points in between the lockdowns where we were allowed to see each other.
Yeah.
So in between the lockdowns, there were two sort of different occasions where we went away on writing retreats.
Ah, brilliant.
Nice.
So we just booked like a hotel, like on the south coast by the sea, and we just went there for a while, for as long as we could, and sort of got together and wrote as much as we could, and went swimming, and just sort of had a nice time, sort of enjoyed each other's company.
Brilliant.
So that was really, really good. Um, but yeah, I think like in between the first lockdown and I maybe didn't saw them twice in like that whole year or something. It was crazy.
Yeah, it's weird because I think for Kev and I, because we're both writers, so like lockdown was just like, oh, I just get to be at home and write more.
Yeah.
Fine, I can manage that.
Exactly. Ideal.
But
Perfect.
yeah, exactly.
Someone will feel, right?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's so much harder for different people. I mean, we've got a conversation tomorrow with a stand-up comedian, and I mean, he just literally, just that's just it, just done for
Yeah.
2 years, nothing at
Yeah.
all.
Wow.
Yeah,
I'm
but
interested though, like on the music side of things as well. Like, how did you kind of keep your like names out there during the lockdown? Was it just like sort of, like working social media? Like, did you do any like sort of appearances or anything like that? Appearances. How did you keep yourself like out there? Because obviously this was a time when you were
Mm.
really growing your profile, like getting noticed. Like, how did that affect that?
Yeah, that was really hard. I was kind of one of the things that I was really worried about at that time was like, yeah, we just had some success, like small success with the first album,
Mm.
and we'd halfway done this amazing tour that had kind of given us a lot of attention from people who normally wouldn't know about us.
Yeah.
And I was really worried that we were just going to lose all of that momentum, like it would just
Mm.
go. And that is not something that I ever stopped worrying about. Like, I think as an artist, like, especially when you have like, even when you have normal problems, like, your record's pushed back or something doesn't happen when it's supposed to, or a tour gets rescheduled, normally that's stressful enough. But then when you're in a situation where everything is cancelled and there is no end in sight, like
Yeah.
you can't say, well, our tour's rescheduled then, or we're going to do this then, because none of us knew when anything was going to happen. um but I think, yeah, for us and for me personally, like we've always had a really good social media following, and because I'm quite
Mm.
active on our social media sort of channels, it was quite easy to stay in touch with people and to just like,
Let people know you're still out there, kind of thing.
yeah, like
Mm.
I'm a prolific shit poster. So like it's and if you put that together with me having nothing else better to do, like it wasn't that hard. Like I was just
like a
like
maelstrom of shit posting.
absolutely, yeah. I was just like, I was like getting up every day, like cracking my knuckles, like, right, who am I going to piss off today? Like,
Fantastic.
Who's in the target today? Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Like, which band is on my shit list right now? So it was hard, but like, I think there's being sort of someone who's funny on the internet and like getting people to take your music seriously and not always the same thing, you know, like
sure.
any presence online is better than no presence, but still having to keep reminding people like, yes, I'm an annoying shit online and it's really funny, but also we have an album that we're writing. Like please remember,
listen to my records.
Yeah, please remember like that we have an album. So yeah, it's just hard. I think that's something that all artists will have struggled with over the pandemic, and just like keeping momentum and reminding people that like we're still here, you know, we're still around. Yeah.
And well, you've managed to do that, and now obviously you're coming back with They Fear Us, which is an album. When's that due for release now?
29th of July, I believe.
Okay. Okay, so that's coming out, and you've got 2 singles coming out beforehand, including the video for the title track, which is, I think, one of the best music videos that I've ever seen. So congratulations on that.
God, wow.
Unbelievable.
Yes.
Thank you. Wow.
It really feels, because I mean, obviously, yeah, I've been following you, I think, since around the start of the pandemic when I first heard the album, and it feels like, you know, you do get to see every now and again sort of a band who are about to have a moment, and you get to have that sort of sense that someone's about to have a moment. And I feel that for you guys, I feel like your album's going to, you know, be the thing that sort of tips you over that sort of from that small sort of well-respected hardcore band into something a bit bigger. So it sounds immense. So how would you say that it's sort of differed from your previous album? How in what ways has it sort of grown sort of outwards, if you like?
Wow, yeah, it's so different. And I feel like this question's really interesting because there's always this question of like nature versus nurture when you're talking about an album that was written over like, you know, a period of 2 years in which the world was suffering through a pandemic and like a humanitarian crisis. And like, okay, we wrote this album, and I often find myself thinking about like, would this album sound different had that never have happened, and had we been able to write it in the sort of normal way? And we'll obviously never know the answer to that question, but definitely the way that we wrote it was completely different to how we normally write. And I'm that kind of person, like I like to be in the room with my bandmates, and you know, we like to be in each other's company when we're writing, so we can bounce ideas off each other and stuff like that. I feel like most people who write music can relate to that. But just, I feel like this album is so much more expansive, and just there's just a real lack of like limitation with what we wanted to do with it, and we're really lucky that everyone that we worked with sort of really believed in our vision for it, and you know, we're just really happy to like let us run with it and be like, okay, you know, go do what you want to do.
Because you changed record labels, obviously. I don't know how much you either can or want to talk about sort of what happened there, but yeah, obviously that must have been quite difficult, sort of trying to find a new label, and then also sort of obviously working with people that you hadn't worked with previously.
Yeah, that whole thing was awful. And, you know, all of the bands that were on that label were suddenly cast out to sea. Like, okay, good luck. Off you fuck. Sorry, I don't know if I'm allowed to swear. Sorry.
It's fine.
Fine.
You can look at our beards. Do we not swear?
But yeah, it was just this kind of thing. Like, right, well, you're on your own now. So a lot of the bands then moved on to Church Road Records, which is Sammy and Justine from Employed to Serve's thing that they sort of started afterwards. And we didn't really know what we wanted to do. We just knew that after working with, you know, several small record labels over the years, some of which, you know, were better than others, we had a really good idea at that point of what we wanted from the label and what we didn't want from the label. So yeah, luckily, I mean, yeah, we were so lucky, we were so privileged because we didn't have to go out searching for a label. There were numerous labels that were interested in working with us, which was really lovely and really flattering. But it did take a while to kind of figure out who would be the right fit for us, you know, because just, you know, there are lots of amazing labels that we could have worked with, but you know, they just weren't quite the right fit. And Hassle Records ended up being just like the best thing we could have done. They've been amazing.
Well, you're joining a fairly incredible roster of artists on there as well, aren't you? So yeah, you're in good company, I suppose.
Yeah.
So with the new album, obviously you've said before you did musical theatre when you were younger, and obviously you've moved now from a fairly exclusively kind of hardcore vocal style to now incorporating sort of clean vocals and stuff like that. So was that like a very conscious thing that you wanted to do, or did that just kind of organically grow out of writing these new songs?
Yeah, wow. Well, it's like, it's this thing where when I was really young, you know, I've been singing since I was a small child. And I went and did singing at uni and, you know, was trained in singing. And then I had such a horrible time at university that when I came home, I had just had it. Like, I was just like, I'm never doing this again. Like, I was so traumatized by it. I was like, I never want to sing again. I'm never doing that again. So when I joined Ithaca, I made a really conscious decision to not do that. And I didn't, you know, it was that whole like no clean singing thing. I was like, no, I'm not doing it. And, you know, all of the rest of the band were absolutely fine with that. And, you know, we were in different places. We were in a different place back then, you know, writing wise and what we were kind of doing. And then sort of as the years went on, I kind of opened myself up to it a little bit more, but I was acutely aware of the fact that I didn't have the voice that I used to. After, you know, not singing for the better part of a decade, I just didn't have those skills anymore. And I didn't have the range that I used to have. And when we recorded The Language of Injury, there's like a tiny little bits of clean vocals here and there, but they're really sort of far back in the mix. And, you know, they're not the focal point of any of the songs. But yeah, like when we were writing this album, I just quite naturally found myself wanting to put a lot more singing into it. I think because of the sort of different things that I was listening to and, you know, lots of different influences. And yeah, just really like not wanting to restrain myself in any way vocally, and just sort of seeing what happens really. But always in the back of my mind was that thought of like, is this good? Like, is this good? I don't know if this is good. Like, do I sound like shit? Like, I don't know if I sound bad or not. And despite the fact that you always have like, my bandmates are amazing, so they're always like, yeah, you know, you're great, like you sound amazing, like, you know, they would tell me if I sounded janky, like if I sounded like garbage, they would say so, but I never quite believed it. But then quite interestingly, I with sort of different artists that I was listening to and just like really thinking about what do I want from my singing versus my screaming? How do I want it to sound? And actually, is it important for me to be a good singer? And the conclusion that I came to was that no, it isn't important for me to be a good singer, because so many vocalists that I love are not good singers. Like, they're not technically good singers. You know, it's about the performance and the emotion and how they deliver it. And I feel like once I realized that, and once I sort of let go of like that obsession with getting my voice back, that it just became so much easier for me to not give a shit about sounding good. Like, and just being like listening to the demos back and the recordings back and being like, does this sound like I want it to sound? And sort of using my voice as just another instrument, you know?
Yeah, and I think I can imagine after sort of so many years of not singing, especially then moving to the harsher vocals, that does changes your voice. You know, I mean, I did it for a few years, and I know Kev done it as well, and it does. Like, I talk differently as a result afterwards. So, you know, it's going to change your singing style. So, but no, I mean, I think that the cleans. I remember when you dropped the first single, and I saw virtually every single response underneath was, "Oh my god, those cleans!" You know, so yeah, so
probably a good sign.
Yeah, it's usually a pretty good sign.
Thank you. Well, you know, like you say, like I'm 10 years older as well than when I was
physiologically
singing.
You've changed as well, right?
Absolutely. And also my body's fucking haggard. Like I smoke 40 a day. I sound like Patty and Selma off The Simpsons. Like I am gravelly. Like I do not treat myself with respect. So yeah, physiologically I'm a completely different being. So yeah, like it was never going to be the same.
Well, that brings me on to one thing I wanted to talk about was, I think, like so many of us who are creatives and putting stuff out there, we also have like full-time jobs, and I know you do as well. I know, we both work full-time. I think one of the things that I've found over the pandemic and sort of beyond is how the fuck do we do work-life balance and creativity? And like, I imagine being on, when I was in a band, I was a teenager and it was fine. I was at university and you could just go and do what you want. So, how do you find that sort of struggle between sort of being a band, going on the road, doing all that sort of thing, and having to sort of nail down a full-time job as well?
Yeah. I think with particularly within music, it's a tale as old as time. When we first started playing together, I was just like, I spent my 20s swinging between different stupid retail jobs and bar work, working in pubs, that sort of thing. Anything I could do that could sustain me financially, but wasn't important enough that it would impact the band. So those sorts of, you'll find like people that work in music and that are in bands and stuff will have jobs like that, will have like service jobs or retail, customer service, that sort of thing, because they are the sort of jobs that allow you to have the flexibility to take time off the touring and stuff like that, because it's shift work, right? Like I'm not a sort of heart surgeon. Like nothing's going to happen if I take time off. And that's always something that I really struggled with when I was younger, was like, am I going to have a career? Is the band going to be my career? Or am I going to suddenly be a washed up 31-year-old? And I'm 31 now. Am I still going to be a washed up 31-year-old being like, listen to my band? And it turns out that I am. But it's just that sort of thing. Like I always found it really difficult because all of my bandmates have careers and they all have like really important jobs that they work really hard at. And I've just never given a shit about work. Like, because I think deep down I knew that music was the only thing I ever really wanted to do. And then sort of as I got into the latter half of my 20s, I did have to start thinking like, I have to make a decision now. Am I just going to continue to work these miserable jobs because they enable me to do the band? Or am I actually going to put some thought and effort into sort of trying to carve out a career path outside of the band, just in case the band doesn't work out? Because, it was getting on in my life and in my career. So I did. I spent like 7 or 8 years working in the beer industry, working for various breweries, working my way up in various roles. Ended up working in marketing, And I absolutely loved working in the beer industry. It was amazing. And it was, you know, again, I feel like that's a place you find a lot of musicians as well. And sort of did have a really good sort of career. And when the pandemic happened, obviously that sort of threw everything else into question.
Jesus, yeah.
What are we going to do now? Because if there are no pubs open, no one's drinking beer. And if no one's drinking beer, what are we going to do with all the beer that we're making? So we have to stop making beer, and then suddenly no one has a job anymore. So yeah, like the service, like sort of that, those industries suffered hugely during that time as well. And then, you know, I got really lucky, and in December, well, no, not December, the beginning of this year, I quit my job and moved to Germany, and haven't been back. And now I'm just doing music.
That's fantastic.
So that was something I wanted to ask you about, actually, because I'm also a Brit who ran away.
Where are you?
I'm in Portugal.
Oh, amazing.
And before this, I was in Poland and in Turkey as well. And I'm also never going back. I go back occasionally to make a bit of cash. But then I do my day job here and writing here and stuff, and live here. So a couple of things really. Like, how have you found the change in terms of like being able to balance your creative life? Is it better? Is it easier because of like things like, you know, slightly lower cost of living and that kind of thing, living there? That's my first question about it.
Absolutely. I mean, I still haven't. I mean, I've only been here since the beginning of this year, but immediately when I told my bandmates I was leaving, the reason that I knew that they would be fine with it is because over the pandemic we never got to see each other, but we still managed to write an album. So before, like pre-COVID, this would have been a huge deal. Me leaving the country,
like a deal breaker.
Absolutely, it would have been a deal breaker. But having managed to sort of stay together as a band and also write an entire new album without ever seeing each other, really put things into perspective. And we were like, okay, no, we can actually make this work. Also, yeah, it's just, I find it so ludicrous that, you know, our bass player Dom lives in Manchester, and it is cheaper and quicker for me to get to London to a band practice than it is for him. And that is how I knew that it was going to be fine. Like,
zero surprises there.
Right.
Yeah.
It's absolutely booloo that you to get from Manchester to London. Like, I just hop on a flight from Berlin to London.
And that's what I was thinking. Berlin to London is so there's so many airlines that fly there. It's so so reasonable if you're not taking a lot of equipment.
I'm the vocalist. Like, no,
yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean?
That's what I was as well. Microphone in the bag. Yeah. I'm good.
Yeah. just try to avoid the drummer when they say, "Can you help me?"
Exactly.
Oh, I'm a bit busy.
Yeah, sorry, I've got to carry this microphone. Sorry.
So yeah, like poor Dom has to spend God knows amount of money on a fucking train from Manchester, or you know, in recent times the trains have been totally screwed up. So like having to get like an overnight coach down from Manchester, whereas I spend 70 minutes on a plane and just turn up, and he hates me for it. Like he's like, "How dare you?"
He's like looking all dishevelled from like his night on a coach.
Yeah, God, exactly. Amazing. And I just roll up like in my trackies, like, all right, like. So yeah, it's just it's not as difficult as it would have once been, I think.
Well, I think that's a kind of a combination. Yeah, you've got that combination of, there are so many tools now that we can all use to sort of live these sort of disparate lives. I mean, you know, 5 years ago, me and Kev wouldn't have been able to make a podcast with him living in Portugal and me living,
or meet each other.
Yeah, or indeed, or ever know each other's names. Yeah, but I mean, it's something, you know, more and more people are just sort of being able to just sort of drop everything and move off. I know Brady from Conjure has done a similar thing, hasn't he? He's moved to America and he's about to drop a new album as well. I unfortunately have school-aged children, so I'm stuck on this rancid isle with
Oh
its
God.
terrible politicians and
For
everything
now.
being.
For now.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Um,
You trying to persuade him to move.
So, yeah.
He's been trying to persuade me to move to Portugal for a while now.
You can
and-
move in with the cats. It's
yeah,
fine.
yeah. Speaking of, how's the ham settled in Germany? Is he enjoying life over there now?
Absolutely, yeah. God, she's having the time of her life. Do you want to see her? Do you want to say hello?
Yeah,
Oh
absolutely.
my God, that
of
would be
course.
amazing.
Of
She's
course.
she's asleep, so she's going to be really mad. Hang on, let me get her.
Oh, fantastic! Even better.
Where is she? Hi, Lulu. Hi, baby. Oh, she looks so angry. Come on. Oh, come on, Piggy. Oh, result.
Oh,
There she is.
What a glorious being.
hello, beautiful.
Oh my word.
Oh, isn't she lovely though? Do you know what? I think that's one of the things that I most enjoyed over the pandemic is watching endless photos of the ham coming up on my socials.
Yeah,
So,
she's kind of become like the sort of band mascot in a way. Like she's like,
Amazing.
and it's really funny as well because whenever, even before the pandemic, when we were playing shows and stuff like that, the first thing people would like say to me at a show after we played wasn't like good show or like great set. It was like, where's the ham? It's like obviously not at the fucking gig. Like
the ham doesn't like hardcore.
the people are just obsessed with her. But
It's
look at
understandable.
that face. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
what
know.
a face.
Well,
What a glorious face.
do you? Because I've got a dog as well, and whenever I put records on and sit in the lounge with him and like play music, he just looks at me with such absolute disappointment. Like, why are you making me go through this? Why am I having to listen to just noise? This is not what I want to do. I'm a dog.
Yeah, she generally just does not care about anything that isn't, anything directly to do with her, which is, I understand that, I get that, and yeah, I think there's certain music that she likes more than others, definitely. Like she likes a bit of yacht rock, Um, she's not so much a big fan of like Cannibal Corpse, but
No,
we move.
she's not grooving to Converge or anything like that. No.
No, I think it's a bit too much for her. But also the thing is, when we do play stuff like that, she can get way too hyper. So yeah, and then that's it's not good for her disposition. So we've got to calm her down a bit.
Put some smooth jazz on.
Yeah.
Well, listen, thank you so much for taking some time to talk to us today. It's been a really good chat, and we shall drop in the show notes links to obviously see the new video and to listen to the new stuff. And I can't wait to hear the album. So thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me,
It's such a
and
pleasure.
thank you for having me in the ham. And it's been a blast. Thanks.
Cool. Yeah. Best of luck. Best of luck with the album. Best of luck with touring. And let me know if you're coming to Lisbon. Ever.
Oh my God, I would love to. Yes, I want to come to Portugal. I will let you know.
Okay. Cool. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Well, wasn't that fun?
It was. That was a lovely conversation. She's very, very cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Very inspiring character. I love her attitude. The whole like I'm going to do it my way, and does she ever bloody do it her way? Jesus,
Absolutely.
So yeah, really, really enjoyed that. Really enjoyed the conversation, and looking forward to checking out that new album when it comes out.
Yeah, definitely. And if you are a fan of seeing how creatives can be online and keep their kind of individuality, then even if you're not really a fan of that kind of music, I'd definitely give Djamila a follow on Twitter and Instagram.
She's bloody hilarious. Apart from anything else,
very, very funny. Very, very funny stuff. So that was episode 2 of All Creatives Now. But before we go, we're obviously creatives ourselves, so we thought we'd kind of keep you in touch every week with a little bit of what we've got going on. So Kev, what's going on with you at the moment?
Well, at the moment, a couple of things really. One is I'm still pitching the novel that I finished at the beginning of the year to a variety of publishers, hoping that someone will pick it up. But the other really exciting news is that my novella Below, which was originally released with Silver Shamrock, who are now defunct, has been picked up by Bridget's Gate Press. and that is going to be released this month, May. It's got a slightly tweaked cover, so it's still the original amazing
I love that
artwork.
cover. Love that cover.
God, it's an absolute stunner. Like Keelan Patrick Burke of Elder Lemon Design just knocks out the park and into the next park. So the new cover's just ever so slightly tweaked, just so people know it's a different edition. But same story. And with the press, in Bridgesgate, who I really have a huge amount of time for their ideas, the way they're going about business. So I'm extremely excited to have joined that stable.
It's really good news.
More on that when it comes through. So what about you, man? What have you got cooking?
Oh, well, I also have another podcast called Bleakwood, which is kind of, it's more of a fiction podcast, and we've now had 2 episodes out of that, and as this comes out, there'll be another one next week. So if you like scary stories and you also like listening to podcasts, then by all means do check that out. Other than that, so a few years ago, the first thing I released was a trilogy of books called Blood on the Motorway. And I've just recently finally gotten around to getting some proper wide print distribution for them. So I've done entirely new versions of the paperbacks, and now rather than just only being able to buy that on Amazon, you can now get those in pretty much any bookstore or library anywhere on the planet, which is great. So you won't necessarily be able to find them on the shelves unless you've got a really cool bookshop that has found them on their own. But you can go into your Waterstones, you can go to IndieBound, you can go pretty much anywhere else. And I actually have a couple in front of me, so I can
let's have a look.
Show. So
that.
So this is
beauty.
It's they're properly nice now. We've got some nice sort of internal design stuff going on that wasn't there before, and it's still the same excellent apocalyptic horror story. So we've got the first one, we've got the second one, we've got the third one, and then if you really need a doorstopper, we've got the complete trilogy.
Oh my god!
In a massive chunky, I like to call it a hefty boy. So
you're not responsible if someone kills someone with that, are you?
No, absolutely not. But I am legally indemnified against it being used as a murder weapon.
As a murder weapon. My
yeah.
God. But don't you also have some hardcover editions coming up around the corner?
Oh, I do. Yes, you might be able to find them online already, but I'm going to be getting some of them through the post in the next couple of weeks or so. So when they come through, yes, they're very, very sexy, and they're a bit pricey, but they are. Yeah, they're very nice. I'm very proud of them. But for
the collector, I mean,
absolutely.
People in it. They'll be looking at it.
And so that's all good. And then once now that I've got these ones out, I also do a monthly sci-fi serial called The Sunset Chronicles, which so far has only been in ebook. And because these have turned out so nice, I'm actually looking at getting them done for sort of small print as well. So like little throwaway paperbacks that you can get for relatively cheap for per episode. So we can maybe talk about those in the next few weeks.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah. So check out all our stuff. Links will be in the show notes. Make sure you check out Djamila's stuff. And
massive thanks to Djamila once again for coming on and taking her time to talk to us. It was really, really valuable, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll be back next week, hopefully. We've already got a couple of interviews lined up. So going back to the beard thing, if you suddenly notice that I go from short beard to long beard to short beard to long beard, it's because we recorded a batch of these before I unfortunately had to get rid of the long beard thing, which
you could have just said it was a superpower, but
I could have done that. Would have been a much better explanation. But the problem is I'm just so overwhelmingly sad to say goodbye to my beard. The best thing is my son just looked at me and just said, "How long does it take to grow back?" And I thought, well, there's an endorsement. There's an endorsement of what my face actually looks like. Thanks, son. So cool. All right. We'll
talk to you next week.
Yeah, indeed. And cheers to everyone for tuning in.
Yeah, thanks everybody.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye.